This is a grid of boxes. On this screen right before your eyes, there are exactly 4,680 individual squares. If you are fortunate enough to live a long, healthy life and reach 90 years of age, each one of these tiny, sterile, empty spaces represents exactly one single week of your entire existence on this planet. That is all you get. Look closely at the architecture of this page. Take a moment to really look at it. If you are 25 years old right now, this entire top section of the grid is already completely gone. It has been filled in with solid, unyielding, heavy black ink. If you are 35 or 40, nearly half of the entire page is permanently dark. You did not feel those weeks leave you. You could not slow them down, you could not pause them, and you can never, under any circumstance, bargain to buy them back. They are spent. But right now, as you sit here and stare at this remaining white space, your brain is playing a lethal, silent psychological trick on your consciousness. You look at the empty white squares remaining at the bottom of the page, and your mind instantly convinces you that it is an infinite ocean of time. You automatically assume you have plenty of squares left to waste. You tell yourself the exact same lies every single day. You say, I'll start being fully present when the business finally stabilizes. I'll enjoy my life when I hit that next big financial milestone. I'll connect with my family and the people I love once I finally beat the crowd, secure my status, and protect my future. But you were trading 20 years, over 1,000 of your absolute prime white squares under the complete and tragic illusion that the finish line will somehow justify the blank space you are burning through right now. You are running a race towards a destination that does not exist. Most people do not realize they are completely asleep until they reach the final 3 rows of their grid. They spend their entire youth treating their time like an infinite bank account that never runs dry, only to realize at the very end that the account was frozen years ago. They look back and see a desert of missed opportunities hidden behind a mountain of meaningless achievements. In this video, we are going to break down the 3 hidden architectural traps that cause the most brilliant, driven, and highly capable minds on Earth to systematically erase their own life grid. More importantly, we are going to look at the exact psychological framework you must deploy today to stop the bleeding before your remaining white squares vanish into the dark forever. Trap number 1, the arrival fallacy and the Rockefeller paradox. The first, and perhaps the most dangerous way we systematically erase our grid is through a severe cognitive glitch known to modern psychology as the arrival fallacy. This is the chronic, deep-seated, systemic belief that reaching a specific future milestone will finally grant you permanent internal peace, validation, and fulfillment. It is the illusion that identity is formed at the destination rather than consumed along the path. We have been conditioned for this structural blindness since the very day we entered the school system. We are told to endure the crushing stress of primary school so we can get into a prestigious university. Then we are told to endure the absolute burnout and sleep deprivation of our 20s so we can secure our position in our 30s. We treat peace like a golden trophy that is waiting for us at the end of a long, dark, painful hallway. We tell ourselves that once the bank account hits a certain balance, or once our name is carved in a door, or once we acquire that specific piece of real estate, our background anxiety will magically evaporate into thin air. But to understand how deep this trap goes, we must look at the historical reality of John D. Rockefeller, who was arguably the wealthiest American to ever walk the earth. By his 50s, Rockefeller controlled over 90% of all the oil production and distribution in the United States. When you adjust his wealth for modern inflation, his financial power completely dwarfed today's wealthiest tech billionaires combined. He possessed enough raw capital to single-handedly manipulate national economies and dictate the fates of industries. Yet, those who knew him intimately noted that he was driven by an unceasing, deeply anxious compulsion to secure the next fraction of market share. He was once cornered by a reporter who asked him a simple question: "Mr. Rockefeller, how much money is truly enough?" His response was immediate and chilling: "Just a little bit more." Rockefeller had reached the absolute mathematical apex of the human grid. He had won the game by every external metric available to civilization, yet his mind was entirely incapable of arriving. He was a prisoner to the next square. Why does this happen to the most successful among us? Because human biology is an evolutionary survival mechanism, not a happiness mechanism. Your brain did not evolve to keep you content, it evolved to keep you alert, paranoid, and moving. When you achieve a major, long-term milestone that you have sacrificed years to reach, your brain releases a brief, temporary spike of dopamine. For a few fleeting moments, you feel successful. You feel entirely safe. But almost immediately, a harsh biological process known as hedonic adaptation resets your baseline back to zero. The brain completely normalizes the achievement. Yesterday's miracle becomes today's boring reality. If you spend 2 or 3 decades training your mind to only find value in the next target, your neural pathways physically adapt to the chase. Your mind becomes exceptionally skilled at running, but completely, utterly illiterate at resting. When you finally reach the row of squares you've been sacrificing your mental and physical health for, your brain won't magically know how to sit still. It physically cannot. It will simply look past the victory, invent a new artificial anxiety, and draw a new finish line further down the page. You trade 20 years of your prime life waiting to arrive at a place that does not exist. Trap number 2, the competence prison and the handcuff effect. The second major trap is far more subtle, and it specifically targets the most capable, ambitious, and intelligent individuals in society. It is called the competence prison. This psychological prison occurs when you get so exceptionally good at a specific career track, a specific skill set, or a particular business model that your entire personal identity becomes completely trapped by your own execution. When you start out in your youth, your drive, your talent, and your intelligence are tools you wield to build freedom. You work long hours to buy yourself options, to clear paths, and to open doors. But if you are not careful, the tool turns around and begins using you. Because you possess the rare ability to outwork, outthink, and outmaneuver 99% of the room, the world notices. And when the world notices competence, it rewards it. It hands you more capital, more responsibility, more prestige, more accolades, and a much heavier reputation to uphold. Suddenly, without you ever making a conscious choice, an invisible golden cage locks around your daily habits. Your internal feedback loop breaks down entirely because your ego begins to deeply associate busy work, high stress, and constant crisis management with high personal value. You feel important because you are burdened, because your intelligence and your sheer willpower made you successful in the start. Your mind falsely assumes that doubling down on that exact same intensity is the universal answer to every future stage of life. You stop evaluating whether the work is actually bringing you closer to internal clarity, and you focus entirely on maintaining your external momentum. You become absolutely terrified to pause. You become terrified to change direction or step down because you are deeply afraid of who you would actually be if you stopped being the hyper-capable person who solves every crisis. You become a literal slave to your own efficiency. Your intelligence did not buy you freedom. It just gave you the architectural blueprints to build a more complex, comfortable, and well-funded prison. You look at your life grade and you suddenly realize you are burning through hundreds of your prime white squares doing things you no longer deeply care about, simply because you are too competent to stop and too heavily rewarded to walk away. You are caught in the momentum of your own success, driving a vehicle you no longer want to steer down a road that leads nowhere. Trap number 3, the sunk cost of someday and the 5 regrets. This brings us to the most heartbreaking trap of all, the one that claims the vast majority of human lives, the illusion of infinite supply. We do not waste 20 years of our lives because we are foolish, lazy, or short-sighted. We waste 20 years because the human mind is fundamentally incapable of processing its own expiration date on a daily level. When you are in your peak working years, experiencing the height of your cognitive and physical power, you treat time like a liquid currency that you can always earn back through future effort. You treat time like money, assuming the market will always open tomorrow. You tell yourself the classic narrative of compromise. I know I'm working 80 hours a week right now, and I know I'm completely missing my children's childhood, and I haven't seen my closest friends in months, but this is just a temporary, necessary season. I will make it all up to them later. I will buy their presents down the road. But look at the structural, unyielding reality of the grid. Seasons are not temporary when they last for consecutive decades. You cannot negotiate, compromise, or bargain with a square that has already turned solid black. An Australian palliative care nurse named Bronnie Ware spent years counseling and comforting people in their final weeks of their lives. Over her long career, she recorded their most consistent, echoing deathbed regrets. Do you know what the single most common regret of the dying was? It was this: I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And do you know what the runner-up regret was? I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Think about that deeply. Not a single human being looked back at their life grid from their deathbed and wished they had spent more hours in the office. Not a single person wished they had answered more emails, closed more deals, or secured a slightly larger piece of market share. They did not weep for lost capital. They wept for the white squares they spent playing a role, chasing an illusion, and wearing a mask for a crowd that did not care. The relationship you put on ice while you chase the crowd will not be the same relationship when you finally decide you have the time to look back. Your children grow up exactly once, and then that row of squares is gone. Your parents age exactly once, and then their squares are dark. Your own physical health, your organic curiosity, and your capacity for simple, unadorned joy change radically with every single row you cross on the page. When you treat your time as an infinite resource, you are not just delaying your happiness, you are actively training your mind to treat the people and the moments that matter most as obstacles standing in the way of your future goals. You burn through 20 years of absolute presence, operating under the tragic delusion that you will eventually find the perfect time to live. Reclaiming the box and the rule of the present square. The rows at the top of the screen are written in permanent, indelible ink. The squares you burned running an artificial race with no finish line are completely gone. You cannot bargain for them, you cannot pray them back, and you cannot buy them back with all the accumulated wealth in the civilized world. But this single glowing square right here, this is this week, this is today, this is this exact micro moment. This is the only space on the entire $4,680 grid where you actually exist. The past is a memory. The future is a statistical abstraction. You only ever occupy the square you are currently standing in. True freedom is not about building an unassailable financial empire so you can feel safe. It is not about outpacing the 99% so you can feel superior. It is not about waiting for some distant external milestone to finally give your anxious mind permission to rest. True freedom requires a radical, deep humility. It requires the willingness to step off the track entirely. It is about looking directly at your remaining white squares and realizing that you do not need an external trophy, a higher net worth, or the approval of the crowd to be completely okay inside your own mind, right now, in this very second. Stop treating your life like an infinite bank account that you can spend later. Look at the precious limited white squares you have left on your page. Drop the endless, exhausting, desperate chase and start living entirely inside the box you are actually standing in.